The World Health Organization is under a full-on assault, and today I'm going to tell you why I think this might be the end for the polarizing organization. Now, I'm sure some of you have seen this video from a year ago because it has resurfaced and once again taken over social media ever since President Trump won his re-election.
The World Health Organization has become nothing more than a corrupt globalist scam paid for by the United States but owned and controlled by China. When the China virus reached our shores 3 years ago, the World Health Organization disgracefully covered the tracks of the Chinese Communist Party every single step of the way. For this reason, it was my great honor to terminate America's relationship with the World Health Organization. The United States was paying the World Health Organization almost $500 million a year. When I dropped out, I took it out of there.
You can see how much our next president hates the organization, and he's not wrong. He really did stop pretty much all the government funding to WHO in 2020, and even then, he wasn't shy about telling the world how he feels about this international entity.
Because they have failed to make the requested and greatly needed reforms, we will be today terminating our relationship with the World Health Organization and redirecting those funds to other worldwide and deserving urgent global public health needs. The world needs answers from China on the virus. We must have transparency.
Now, he made the latest statement about WHO because he did not want our country to become part of the so-called pandemic treaty. And what's so bad about this treaty? Well, I'll just let him explain.
And now Biden is pushing to bypass the United States Senate to enter a pandemic treaty that would surrender American sovereignty to the World Health Organization, again controlled by China. The draft treaty would require the United States to send vast quantities of medical supplies to other countries in the event of another pandemic, and it would push aggressive censorship of free speech on issues of public health.
Now, this treaty has been controversial from the very beginning. People have been saying it gives way too much power to WHO, and it can make the organization a tyrannical entity.
More than 14 million children in 2022 did not receive a single dose of vaccine. Working together with partners like Gavi and UNICEF, we aim to halve that number by 2030. But you know the serious challenge that's posed by anti-vaxxers, and I think we need to strategize to really push back because vaccines work, vaccines affect adults, and we have science, evidence on our side. I think it's time to be more aggressive in pushing back on anti-vaxxers. I think they use COVID as an opportunity and, all the havoc they're creating.
Here's a doctor sharing her concerns about this treaty.
We're undergoing a soft coup, and the idea is to create a whole new set of laws and ignore the existing human rights laws and other laws under the pretext of pandemic preparedness and the biosecurity agenda. The WHO is developing through all its nations, but with the WHO Directorate in the United States in charge, a pandemic treaty and amendments to the existing international health regulations that will remove the human rights protections currently embedded in the IHRs, will enforce surveillance, censorship, get rid of freedom of speech, require governments to censor and only push a single narrative. And the Director General of WHO can demand that a pandemic or a potential pandemic exists. He can just declare it with no standards, and then countries around the world will have to obey. Also, the WHO will tell you what drugs you can and can't use in your nation once a pandemic is declared.
Now, I'm not saying her concerns are real, but I do believe they need to be considered before we start paying WHO billions of dollars in addition to what we're giving them right now. And we once again started funding them soon after Joe Biden came into power. And currently, 16% of their total funding comes from taxes you and I pay every year. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather not be be giving $1 to some shady organization that can potentially control my freedom and tell me where I can go and what medicine I definitely have to take if I want to keep my job. Now, the doctor might be wrong, but I can't deny the fact that something about WHO has always bugged me. If you go back to that funding chart, you'll see that right under the United States, we have the famous Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is directly responsible for nearly 13% of the funding WHO is receiving. That is already concerning, but if you go down a little more, you'll find Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. Now, according to Wikipedia, this semi-private organization received more than $1.5 billion from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation between 2016 and 2020, which, funny enough, is the same time when Donald Trump was our president. Now, looking at these numbers, you can easily see that most of the funding to WHO comes from Bill Gates and his philanthropic organization. I don't even have to tell you how much control this gives him over the so-called international organization. And I don't know about you guys, but Bill Gates is not someone you can trust to run the biggest health organization in the world. The man is not a doctor, and that man also has a history of peddling his own products as planet-friendly. I mean, Bill Gates famously said that he wants all the rich nations to stop eating meat and to switch to synthetic or fake meat. And won't you know it, one of the companies he invested in received USDA approval to make lab-grown meat for the public. You tell me how this man is any different from any shady businessman, and you want him to become the overlord of world health? Now, even though the Biden administration has been happily giving money to WHO, Bill Gates still thinks they're not doing enough. But it looks like things are only going to get worse for the organization now that Donald Trump has returned to the White House against all odds. And he's been very transparent about what kind of plans he has in store for WHO.
Under the next Trump administration, that treaty will be immediately terminated. I would not allow public health to be used as a pretext to advance the march of global government. That's what they're doing, globalists. The United States will withdraw from the corrupt World Health Organization, which, in light of its utter failure on COVID, they had a tremendous disaster on COVID, deserves to be completely abolished and replaced. Then I will work to forge a new coalition of nations that are strongly committed to protecting health while also upholding sovereignty and freedom.
And Donald Trump is only one of the threats to the WHO and its global treaty. The British government, which had initially backed this treaty, had to change their plans when a petition with 156,000 signatures appeared in the Parliament. The petition warned the UK government to not sign any such treaty without a referendum. And this summer, huge protests and rallies were seen in Japan against this treaty and the dominance of WHO. Even Argentina has now taken a different position on WHO, the UN, and the World Economic Forum. And their president, Javier Milei, didn't really mince words while sharing his frustration about these international organizations and their 2030 agenda.
This organization stopped upholding the principles outlined in its founding declaration and began to mutate. An organization that had been conceived essentially as a shield to protect the realm of men transformed into a multi-tentacled leviathan that seeks to decide not only what each nation-state should do, but also how all the citizens of the world should live. This is how we went from an organization that pursued peace to an organization that imposes an ideological agenda on its members regarding a myriad of issues that pertain to human life in society. Thus, we have seen how an organization that was born to defend human rights has been one of the main drivers of the systematic violation of freedom, such as the global quarantines during the year 2020, which should be considered a crime against humanity.
Now, considering that President Milei has been a close friend of Donald Trump and was elected by the same kind of populist movement, it's no surprise that he shares President Trump's hatred for globalists. Now, I'm not here to tell you if it's okay to be funding WHO or not. I'm just here asking questions about an organization that is funded by billionaires and has lost public trust. Luckily, we now have a president who is also a fan of asking questions and will likely not push us to join a global pact that can decide our future for generations. That's going to end today's video. Please double check and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. As always, thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I'll catch you on the next one.